Hello guys, so welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I ain't got no makeup on. I look like death, so you know what time it is. I'm gonna do my makeup today, get ready and get into a deep conversation with you guys because I wanted you guys to get to know me better and I wanted to be more vulnerable and share something special with you. I wanted to talk about depression and how through the years, because it wasn't once or twice, it was multiple times. So how through the years, reading and books in general really helped save my life. So the title is not even clickbait or dramatic. It's the honest truth. I've always found solace in books, in losing myself into other dimension, other universe. I know right now it's the seasonal depression. Everybody's feeling down, everybody's feeling unmotivated. So I know it can be tough. I know it can be really hard. So I was thinking if I can help even one or two of you get motivated, go back to reading, because I know how it is, for example, when you're in a reading slump and you have nothing that suits you, nothing that interests you. We're gonna talk about all of that. So today I don't have tea, even though I'm gonna be spilling some tea. I'm sipping on an adult beverage for once. So cheers to you guys because it's Friday night. I think I'm gonna go back to when I was a kid and then go my way up until to this point. So when I was a child, I had my first heartbreak. So you guys are gonna think it's funny, and as of now, I can laugh about it. Like it's not as dramatic as it used to be for me. But when I was young, to me it was the end of the world because I had this guy I loved so much. It was the summertime. He was older than me, so I was also glad that he finally noticed me in a sense. I felt like I had to be grateful. I felt like finally he could see me for who I was and for the grown woman I was turning into, because at that point I was a preteen. I think I was between 13 to 15 years old. So yeah, he finally went out with me, so I was over the moon and he broke my heart. It's a part of a learning process to me. It's like it's part of life. At that point, I remember I've always loved book, but it wasn't as deep, it wasn't as necessary to me, because now reading is like breathing to me. If I don't read for a whole week, I feel bad. I actually read more than I watch shows or movies, so that is saying something. So yeah, I went back to reading. And I remember it was the summer I discovered Twilight. So this is gonna be very controversial. There are some people that agree with Twilight. There are some people that hate it. I'm part of the people that now question it. I want to read it again just to see if I still have the same vision. But back then I was so into it. I wanted to meet my own vampire. So yeah, Twilight helped me really ground myself, go back to who I was, and helped me also navigate teenage years, if that makes sense. As I was saying, so I got into Twilight and it really fascinated me because I just went through a heartbreak, and here I was reading about this guy that was supposed to be 100 years old and super gentleman with Bella. So I was talking about Edward and the relationship dynamic. He was such a gentleman with her. He wasn't trying to push her into doing anything that she wasn't comfortable doing or anything sexual. It was really a romantic relationship between them. And it really hit hard because I was previously dating an older boy that sometimes convinced me to do things that I wasn't really comfortable doing and made me grow up a little bit sooner than I would have wanted. So I could relate to that and I could understand the feeling of having a guy really being interested to you and not to your body or what you had to offer. So I really enjoyed that story. And as corny as it was, because I have to admit it was really corny. I really like the way Stephanie Meyer developed the character of Bella and Edward and their relationship, and wasn't too she didn't make them grow up too fast, if I can say. Um Besides perhaps in the last book. So this is not a review of Twilight really, but I just wanted to let you know guys where my mind was. It was also around the time that Harry Potter ended. I don't remember if it was the book or the movie. It must have been the movie, the last part of the Deathly Hollows that came out. And I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, this is such a journey ending for me, because I've been reading those books since I was 11, really. I was waiting for my letter for Hogwarts and all of that. And I felt like I grew up with Ron, Hermione, and Harry. And that I've seen them also experience their first heartbreak and sadness. And I remember the last three books, so starting from Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, were so sad because you had to experience grief, you had to experience death, loss, and sadness, and feeling of depression, and feeling of being isolated. Because if I'm correct, Harry in the fifth book was really isolated because he said that Voldemort had came back and nobody was believing him. So as a young teenager back then, it was really fascinating to me to learn about those experiences and learn about those feelings and put a word on them, because I was also going through heartbreak. I was also going through grief. I was also going through loss. I remember it was around the time that I really started to understand how my dad passed away, because if you guys don't know, I'm Rwandan and my dad passed away during the Rwandan genocide. So I was asking a lot of questions. I was learning a lot of hard truths. That was my first time where I had a dark summer, because I remember that guy dumped me. He actually did the dumping, which was a slap in the face for me, because I was like, okay, that's the first time that I've been brokenhearted, and on top of that is the one that left me. So I remember we had to do a summer vacation at my family in France, and I wasn't even excited to be there. I wasn't even excited to be at the beach. I was just so heartbroken, and the only thing that could take my mind off it was books. So that was the first time that I experienced a lot of sadness. So this is still child's play, so that's what I'm smiling about it, but I'm gonna get into the more serious stuff. And then I started university. So I started law school when I was 17, which, looking back to it, I was so young, I was so dumb. I didn't know much about anything about life, about studying, about being a lawyer. Even I had just this dream of being this lawyer, defending people and being there for the good cause. So I got into school, and you have to know that when I was in high school, when I was in elementary school as well, I was a good student. So I never had bad grades. I never had to sit back a year. I've never been confronted to failure. That's what I was trying to say. And being from a black family, an African family, you know how it is. Everything is about school, about grades. So you get privileges only if you're a good student. Even though I was the only kid, you would think I was spoiled rotten, but I wasn't. So if I wasn't doing good in school, it wouldn't be good at home, right? So the first year went by and I didn't take it seriously. I was like, okay, low school. I've succeeded at anything I tried so far. So why this one would be different, right? So I started the second year and everything went to shit, literally. I had to sit back my second year of university, which was such a hard slap in the face. And I think I've never really even talked about it on my social media. So it's the first time for me being vulnerable and truthful about it. So I had to redo the second year. I was shamed. My parents, they were disappointed. They made it known that they were disappointed. But at the time, I was still hopeful, because doing a year again was common. It happened. So I didn't feel too bad about it. So it wasn't the point where I really went down. But I still started, doing summer jobs again and reading again, because the first year of law school was hectic. So I wasn't able to read as much as I would have wanted to. But thanks to me having to sit back my second year, I had way more free time. I was able to take classes of the third year, and I was able to also go back to reading. In my third year, I was more focused. I think I started taking university more seriously. Third year of the bachelor degree was the worst. It was so hard, and I did my everything, because I took class in advance when I had to redo my second year. So I tried to give myself the best tools in order to succeed and not be, stuck doing back a year again. But guess what? It ended up happening anyway. So I had to sit back my third year, and that was like, I don't know, a huge depression hit me. I wasn't eating too much or sleeping. I became an insomniac at the time, and I'm still to this day. I still have trouble sleeping, so I stopped sleeping. I was just, wallowing in sadness, because I was supposed to go abroad for my master degree. So I was not able to do that. I was supposed to go to Spain. So I was so depressed. I didn't want to go to work anymore. I remember at the time I was working at Agendas. So I always had a sweet tooth, and it was such a good job for me. But I didn't want to work. I didn't want to go again. And I had a good orientation counselor. She talked to me. She said, why don't you try to take a few weeks off uni? So I said yes. So I knew that they were proposing Japan as a destination for the master degree. So I was like, let me build up a really good file so that they let me go. So I started taking Japanese classes, and I started reading mangas, and I discovered real romance book. What I mean about that is not, Twilight or the young adult kind of book. And I was reading a lot of historical romance at the time, and that's how I discovered some books that were really close to Bridgerton. Now I don't remember all the titles or the authors now, and I remember I discovered Jude Deveraux. So she's a historical romance author. I think she's American, and she wrote about the Montgomery brothers, and I got so involved into the books. I lost myself into the saga. So each book was about one brother, and it was so interesting, and I completely became so interested into anything medieval, anything historical. I remember that not too long after the series Reign appeared on Netflix, I think. So I started watching that. So I was really into that mood, and it was back then when Game of Thrones also started. So I got into that as well. So yeah, I was just into my thing, I was losing myself into series, into books, so I could distract myself from the fact that I felt like a failure. I felt like I was letting my parents down. I felt like I was disappointing them. And the thing with the depression is that it's like a wet blanket that is pulling you down. So you don't really see the time passing. You don't really see anything because you're just focused on the fact that you're so sad. You cannot get out of that feeling. You don't have any solution. You feel like you're helpless, and you can get into very dark thoughts. My issue was that on top of the issue at school, I had body issues my whole life. So I can say that I still have to this day body dysmorphia, in the sense that I always see myself bigger than I am. I know I'm a curvy girl. I know I'm not real thin, I also know that I'm fluffier than most girls, and I'm okay with it now, but it took me a long time. I was really closed on myself, which wasn't a good idea. So I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't explaining how I felt to anybody. So it was really a dark period. I remember my second, third year was horrible. It was the year before I graduated from my bachelor degree. So it was, I think, between 2014 to 2015. And I remember at the end of my second, third year, when I got my bachelor degree, my mom took me on a trip to Paris because she was so happy that I was back to exercising, eating, going out, being happy, laughing, because I was just a miserable person for a whole year. And I remember when the results were announced, I couldn't even bear going to the amphitheater and listening with my fellow student, because I expected to fail again. When you fail a certain amount of time, you become used to it, and then it becomes your new normal. And it affected me to this day because I'm still scared of failure. Doing a year again in university is the least of my problem now. I mean, now when I look back at it, like almost 10 years later, I'm like a grown adult. I have a mortgage, I have bills to pay, and I'm like, I used to cry about the dumbest shit. I used to cry about the most stupid things, because now those things look so childish to me and so out of touch. But I want to say something. Guys, don't downplay your hardship. Don't do it like me. If for you it's the end of the world, then it's the end of the world. It might not be for the next person, but if it's for you, the crisis of the century, it is. Just take it like that. Get through it, get some help, and then you're gonna be able to laugh about it 10 years later, like I am now. So that was the second major turning point of my life, where I really felt like books were my only salvation, in a sense. Because, like, again, I'm a Pisces. So first of all, I love losing myself into other fantasies and worlds. So it's something really common for me. But when I'm struggling with something, it's more prevalent, I would say, because at the time I really need the escape. I really need to think about something else. I really need to be somewhere else, even for my mind, and for myself. So one thing that happened to me, like I mentioned, I had a boyfriend at the time, and we went through so many hardship, because during my university journey, like I said, I was supposed to go to Japan, which I did in my first year of master degree, and it really put our relationship through the ringer, I have to say. And this is when I discover the After saga. So I don't know your opinion on After, or what you think about the movie or the books. The movies to me are terrible. Let me say, the book is so intense. If you've read it, it's so intense, so toxic. It's like such I don't know, a romance that gets you pulled in, which is what happened to me when I was in Japan. When I tell you guys that I think I read the 5 books in like a week, I'm not even joking. I was just straight reading. I wasn't doing anything. And I tend to do that. When I have a good series, something that I loved, and it happened to me with the Briar You, Off Campus with Sophie Lark. And when I get pulled into a good series, I forget about everything else, and this is really terrible. So I spent a whole week reading. I was just locked into my room. My other foreign students, they were wondering what I was doing, but I was just so enthralled by the story and by the relationship dynamic between Tessa and Hardin. And when I think about it now, it's so toxic. It shouldn't be for, it's a young adult book, I believe, but no teenager or young adult should be reading that, because it's gonna give you such a bad example of romance and of love. And even if they ended up having somewhat a happy ending, it's still so toxic to me, because Hardin was really codependent on Tessa and Tessa as well, and they didn't know how to live without each other. They made a lot of decisions based on each other, and it was really bad. And at the time, I had relationship issues, so I could relate with the book. And to me, it was bad because I was taking advice from a really toxic book and toxic couple. So after that, I didn't really have any more depressive episode for the time I was studying. So I ended up finishing my degree, and I went to Amsterdam to do a LLM. So it's like a second master degree. And it's the because I couldn't in my second year of master go back to reading, but in the LLM I had sometimes. And again, relationship issues. My boyfriend and I were fighting so much, and at the time I was really into everything K-drama, everything K-pop, everything cutesy, so really good feel good romances, right? And I think it's the time I started reading The Hunger Games, which was such a bad idea. So I was trying to be uplifted and to finish my studies once and for all. And I needed a good and positive energy, right? Throughout the Hunger Games, Katniss is gonna experience a lot of pain, because every time she gets attached to somebody, they end up dying or living or something. So yeah, it wasn't the best, I would say, book for me to read when I was such in an emotional state. So it really stayed with me in a sense, that book, that stories. It's not one of my favorite, but it resonated with me because she was feeling so lost, and this is what I was feeling at the time. So as you can see, all of those kind of depressive episodes, they can relate to what I was feeling. It was 2018, and I still remember because it was such a rough year for me. I had a really horrible job. I had problems with my boyfriend. I had issues with my parents as well, because the monetary aspect of my studies was finally weighing so heavy on us. So I wasn't in a good space, and I didn't know what to do. Also, I was close to graduating and I still didn't know what to do. I decided to apply for the UN, so the United Nations. And the application process was hell. I remember the application coordinator, bless her heart, if she ever sees this video, Venice, you know I love you so much. But oh my god, she was not really the most organized person. She wasn't the most responsive person. And I kept asking her, am I really accepted? Because she sent me a semi-acceptation letter, and I didn't know if I had to tell my parents. And mind you, I just came back from Amsterdam, so I was leaving again, and this time for New York, and New York is expensive. I was feeling guilty of putting my parents through all of that financially, and it was gonna ruin my couple. I knew that for sure, because at the time we were together going 6 or 5 years, and we had the worst period of our life. He was really resentful to me for everything I was doing. Anytime I had to go away, he was mad at me. So Japan was hard, and then Amsterdam was harder, but at least I could go back to Belgium because it's like 3 hours away. But me going to New York was, I think, the final straw in our relationship, and I could feel it coming, and I didn't want to face reality. I really got lost into books again to read about good relationship, because mine was going through hell. And it was also the period where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. So I finally left for New York. I went because I was never gonna sacrifice an internship at the UN for nobody, especially not a guy. So I went. So it wasn't easy on my parents as well, because I think poor people. I really feel bad, mom, dad, I'm sorry. I feel like they were so relieved when I had my second master degree, because they were like, this bitch is finally over with her studies. She's finally gonna stop costing us money. And here I was going to the UN, but they were so proud as well, so they didn't really take it too bad. But going to New York was hard, because even though Japan was a huge adjustment for me, I was at the other side of the world. I felt like I was isolated from my friends, from my boyfriend, from my family. But New York was something else, because I was living in this world where everything is running so fast. You're at the United Nations, so you feel like you're doing something for the world. You think like what did you do has an impact, so you want to be perfect. So I was putting a lot of pressure on me, and I had a huge reading slump. The whole time I was in New York, I think I read one book, which is not usual for me. I usually read so much per year, but I had a hard time reading. I tried to read my favorite book, which is Gone with the Wind, because I wanted to go back into something familiar, something I liked, and something that was gonna make me read more. The problem that I had is that Gone with the Wind is such a depressing story. I don't know if you guys have read it, but it doesn't finish. It doesn't have a happy ending. Definitely not. I quickly let it go. I didn't even finish Gone with the Wind, and through the entire time I was doing my internship, I met a lot of people, and I really became more involved in the K-pop community, and I discovered K-pop fan fictions. And it was so funny to me because when you're a K-pop fan, you tend to get into the culture, into the fandom, and you tend to idolize those people and imagine who they would be in a relationship with. And I got so into that world, and I really got into the whole shipping movement and, one true pairing and all of that. And I really became a geek. I started noticing that some of the people writing fan fictions, they had so much talent. They could write something that was book worthy, that could be on the New York Times bestseller list. So I've discovered so many good stories. If you guys want, I will try to go back, look into it, and give you some titles that were really nice. I got into M&M romance, which was unusual for me because I'm not LGBT or anything like that. So I've never read anything LGBT, and I noticed that you don't have to be LGBT to read about an LGBT story between a man and a man or a girl and a girl. And me reading fiction was fun. It got me back into reading. I remember I discovered them around June. I was supposed to be there until August, and I spent the whole last 2 months reading and being so happy, so feel good. There were so many funny stories. So I started reading about, funny romance as well. So comedic romance. So I really enjoyed it so much. And when I came back, I was back into reading because I just gave a chance to fan fiction. It was lighthearted, it wasn't as serious. Then I came back. I found a job in a law firm in Luxembourg, and my life became hell. When I tell you hell, I had I had broken up with my boyfriend before going to New York because I felt like we needed a break and we needed to be apart because I needed to find myself to become the woman that I wanted to be, and I felt like he needed to be without me. When I came back, we tried to rekindle it, but it was not good. Anytime I would see him, we would be fighting. It was the hardest 6 months of my life because I came back from New York from the fast life of the United Nations, and then I went back to working into Luxembourg as a lawyer. I was studying for the bar exam. Everything was just about negativity, and this is something that I struggle with. When I'm in a negative headspace, I don't really look for positive things to do or to put my mind into, and I know that it's a big, big, big mistake that I do because you just get into more negativity. So my work life balance was shit, my romantic life was shit, I was moving back to Belgium, so that was shit, I was adjusting to the jet lag, that was shit as well. So to me, the last few months of 2019 was so hard, and that's when I discovered the book The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I really, really loved it. Sorry, from the top of my head, I can't remember the author, but it was a good book to me. I know everybody's saying, "Oh, it's a trendy book on TikTok, but it's not that good." But to me, it was really nice. I loved the vibe, the fact that she was such an old Hollywood actress, the experience, her talking about the first Oscars and everything you had to do back then as a woman to be recognized by your peers, even though you were a good actress. I really loved it. And the development of each relationship and each of her husband and why she loved them, why she left them, why this and that happened. I really enjoyed it. And I think it pulled me into such a good headspace, surprisingly, because Evelyn Hugo in the book, recounting her story, is really positive about it. She's really longing. She has a lot of good memories and good feelings about those men. She's not resentful. So I really loved it, and it managed to make me not being resentful to my ex-boyfriend as well. I was like, you know what? Let me take a page out of her book. Let me realize that we had a good relationship. Not everything was negative. Not everything was bad. He was still a good person, and I'm still lucky that I got to know him because he taught me so much about myself. He taught me so much about life, and I think we really matched well, and I think we loved each other so much for the time we were together. So it wasn't a bad relationship. I don't want to, there's a saying in French, it's like ne crache pas dans la soupe que tu as bu. It's like, don't be ungrateful for the experience you had, basically. So yeah, no, I don't have any resentment. And it was a bad period because of COVID and the uncertainty. So I wouldn't want to go and relive that, but it taught me so much about myself, about relationship, about communication, that I'm grateful. And that book was really nice. Later on during the summer, I got into Circe. So it's a story about a half goddess, and she's navigating life as being one of the daughter, I think, of Percy and of Helios. So I think the god of the sun or something like that. And so she's navigating life. She falls in love with somebody that is either half or mortal completely. So she is just being casted aside, I think, at some point on some island, and she learns to attract men and fishermen. And so yeah, it's just her journey through life. And it was the book, the feeling that I want to put on it, it's you get a lot of peace from reading it, because the way Madeline Miller describes the scenery. So that book was nice to read during the pandemic, where we're in a world where we didn't know where we were going and what we were doing with ourselves. And it was a nice way of escaping reality once again, because Madeline Miller has a really good way of describing things, and you really get sucked into the book. Because back then I was reevaluating my life, because I just got out of a 7-year relationship. I realized that I didn't love my job, and I think a lot of people felt that way during COVID. And I talked about it with somebody not too long ago, and I said that COVID put us in a half depressive mind state. We didn't realize it, because when we were getting a lot of freedom, we would enjoy it and then go back to lockdown, and then again back again some freedom, and then back again some lockdown. And we didn't know what to do. We never knew if we could plan ahead, and it was such uncertainty, and it put me in such a negative mind space. And all the time I was passing the bar exam, so it was really tough, and my job wasn't making it easy on me. So yeah, it was a challenging 2020, a challenging 2021, and finally I felt like I could breathe in 2022. So I know a lot of people still feel the effect in 2023, but to me it was just the first 2 years of COVID that were horrible. Anytime you wanted to travel, you had to think about the vaccine, you have to think about being sick, you had to think about, oh, am I gonna give it to my parents? So yeah, I wouldn't say I was in a full-blown depression, but I didn't even have time to process my breakup, because worst things were happening. Like, why am I gonna cry over a boy? Like, the world is going to shit, literally. Everything is closing down. You couldn't take anything for granted anymore. The little freedom that we used to enjoy and not really recognize, I swear to God, just going to walk around, being able to travel by car, being able to take the plane, being able to go back to concerts and festival, I really, really enjoyed it to the fullest. So 2022 was challenging because I spent so much money. I was like, okay, let me get back the years that they stole from me, because COVID took my last year of the 20s, and I'm gonna be forever salty about it. It was the last 3 years before I turned 30 at the beginning of this year, and I felt like I wasn't able to enjoy it like I should have been able to. And so anytime I could travel, I was doing it big. Anytime I could party, I was doing it big. Like my 30 birthday party, I spent so much money. So 2022, I was like, let me show you what I missed on. And I stopped reading for a while, and then I discovered Cora Riley. Let me tell you, thank God, I remember it was a break for me in between two jobs, in between 2021 and 2022, because the way I got sucked into Cora Riley, it's not even funny. So sorry, I think I made a mistake. I discovered her in 2021, and I think it took me like a month to go through all of her books. And then in 2022, I discovered Sophie Lark. So yeah, sorry, I got it a little bit mixed up. So yeah, I got into mafia romance, like who would have thought? And I started reading a lot. And I started reading The Braille, Off Campus, so many sports books. And that was all between 2022 and 2023. And in between that, I bought an apartment at the beginning of this year. And that was my last depressive episode. So at first it was nice. I was so proud of myself because I felt like I accomplished something big. But when you buy a property, trust me, the first few months are like getting into a new relationship. It's all the honeymoon feeling. You feel good, you feel happy. And then when it hits you, the responsibility that you have, the impact that it's gonna have on your finances, trust me that when the reality hits and you're just like, okay, what the fuck did I do? So when I finally realized it was this summer, after I've lived my best life, I decided, because it was the year of my 30 birthday, I was deserving on going on vacation, even though I just bought a flat. So I went to Portugal for a festival. It's Afro Nation. I don't know if you guys know it. I've went to London with my parents because I wanted to spend time with them, and we got the tradition to travel at least once a year together. And I went to Turkey in September. And then something happened and I decided to quit my job, and which wasn't really the best thing that could happen to me at the time, because in August I was still navigating being a homeowner and paying taxes and paying this and paying that, and I was an independent contractor, and it had a lot of influence on the way my finances went. So later in October I had a huge financial blowdown, and I had some back taxes to pay that I didn't have the money for, and I went into deep, 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 deep depression. I'm talking not even seasonal depression, like the depression you wake up, you eat a little bit because you have to, and your stomach is screaming, and then you just do crying. And I cried and I cried. So that was me all end of September and most of October. I really had to pull my head out of my own behind, because I was like, you cannot stay in that state. But the only thing that was getting me going was reading books at the time. I was reading dark romance, guys. So I don't know what I was thinking. I've read Haunting and Hunting Adeline. I've read the Mindfuck series. I've read Still Beating. I've read one by I'm trying to think, the one by Sam Marino, Untouchable. So I was reading really, really dark book. And even in the Sophie Lark, that's when I read Kingmakers, and you know how it goes in Kingmakers. There's a public execution, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of grief. So I wasn't even reading books that were helping my mind state, and it lasted for the whole of October. And I didn't know, because the thing is, I'm not a person that knows how to ask for help. I'm not a person that know how to talk to my friends. So the only thing that was keeping me going is reading, because I could forget about my situation, I could forget about my financial hardship, and going to dance. I do dance classes. That was the only two things that were keeping me going. And also being single and being alone was really hard, because everything I did for my apartment, so meaning buying the apartment, building furniture, moving the furniture, decorating, I did by myself. And people always tell me, oh, you're an independent woman, you're so impressive, look at how young you are, and you're a lawyer, and you achieve this and that alone. But the thing is, I didn't achieve it alone, because it's a choice. I met a guy earlier this year, and I really thought it was going to work, and things went really left around before the summer. And it really, brought me down, because I was like, am I incapable of finding love? Am I not worthy of love? Am I not worthy of being happy? Why am I alone? Why am I doing all of that alone? Like, why am I not the only one like this? Like, why all of my friends are having a hard time finding love? And finally, this October, I also had the realization of something that happened to me during the summer. So I had something traumatic that happened to me. It's nothing too bad, but it's still, it shook me up a little bit. And I didn't realize it at the time that it was really a bad thing, because it was a near experience. It didn't really happen, but it was about to happen. It was an attempt, let's say. And so I didn't see it as bad, because to me, I escaped it. So I was like, okay, it's nothing too serious. But I only fully realized it when came November, and October, and I was such in a bad headspace, because everything negative from this year came back to me. So the finances, me being lonely, me being single, me not working anymore, and not necessarily finding a new job that I liked, and then that experience, and me losing also some friends. I swear to God, October, I think, was one of the hardest months I had in my life. I had some very dark thoughts. At some points, I just wanted everything to stop. And I discovered at the time, I think, what author was it? Elsie Silver. And I want to say thank you to her. She's never going to see this video, but her books were so positive. They were so upbeat, they were so lighthearted. They had some serious things in them, and they have some serious topic as well, but they were so feel good. I was reading her Chestnut Spring series, and I was also reading the Windy City series, and it made my heart feel so good, feel so at peace. And I was like, okay, it's not like it's a hopeless situation. You can get out of bad situation. It gave me a lot of hope. It gave me a lot of, sense of life, and it motivated me to push myself. That's when I decided to start my YouTube channel. That's when I decided to be motivated, because I was like, you know what, let me not stop the grind. Let me not stop my project. Being in a bad financial situation happens to the best of us. And I decided to also adopt a cat, so he's arriving at the end of this month, so I'm so excited. I'm actually going to visit him tomorrow, and he's so precious. And I hope he's gonna make an appearance in the next videos. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I have things to look forward, and my friends were like, we're here for you. But yeah, so I had some feel good stories this year, but I really read also some serious books that put my mind in a negative headspace. And now I know when to recognize the signs, where I know when I need to be reading either a nice book, a happy book, or when I can allow myself to go back to something more serious. At the moment, for example, I'm reading Take You Down by Mickey Marie, and our book is quite serious because she's mentioning substance abuse in there, and sadness. So it's not just a rock star romance where it's just exciting and happy and all of that. No, there's some serious topic, and I feel like my mind is ready to read that, and I'm having a good time. I'm having a great time. I think I'm gonna finish it this weekend. So I'm happy to see that I'm finally out of this slump. I'm finally out of those depressive episodes that I've been having. I know I'm gonna have some more in the future, and like I said, it started when I was a teenager, and I feel like everybody goes through them. But one thing though, I think mental health is really important. Take care of yourself, and don't forget to check the triggers on books. We joke about it a lot, but books are part of our reality, and it can impact you. But yeah, I just thought it was really important for me to mention the depression and this mind state, because I feel like it's affecting a lot of people, and it's not just me, it's not just my friends, it's the whole world. And I feel like we don't take mental health as seriously as we should, even though there's been some improvement. I feel like now, especially in Black families, I would say, because I feel like it's something that is not really talked about in the Black community, but I feel like we're making such an effort on it. And as I was saying, it's not a good thing to read sad books when you're down. But sometimes some books have good life lessons, like I was saying earlier when I was reading the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I learned how to see relationship from a different angle. So I'm grateful for all of those experiences that I got through books. So yeah, like I was saying, books really saved my life, and I would never say it enough, and I would never be more grateful for that I love books and I love reading, and I'm never gonna stop. Hey guys, so I finished my makeup, so I put my lashes on and my lipstick, and now I'm gonna go spend time with my friends. So thank you for listening to me. I know it was a long video, I'm sorry, but I was just all over the place trying to get my thoughts into order and convey my feelings in the best of my ability, because depression is something really serious to me. I've been battling with it my whole life, I would say, and I've never really felt to the deep depression, but I feel like I've had serious depressive episode, and I feel like if I can help even one person out there get to their feelings, get to reading, get to something that will help them, or even ask for help, then I will have achieved my goal. And I just wanted to put my feelings into words, because sometimes when you express how you're feeling, when you express your sadness, it's also a big help. It's also going to make you feel better about yourself and about your situation. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys can get some tips into this video and get something positive out of it, because that's my goal. And if you guys are feeling down, if you guys feel like you're being depressed, please get some help. Please reach out if you want to talk to me. I'm gonna leave all my social media. Don't hesitate if you want to send me a message. I know the feelings. I know how it is to feel hopeless. I know how it is to feel like you have no solution and nothing is gonna go the way you want it to. But please know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and even though it's not a good time now, you're gonna laugh about it in 10 years, hopefully, and you're gonna feel better in just a few months. So please hang in there, be brave. I know it's not an easy period, it's dark all the time, it's raining all the time, but please guys, keep the faith up, keep the spirits up, and I know it's gonna be a good year. I know 2024 is gonna be nice, so let's finish 2023 on a positive note, and let's try to make it through, So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.